It's Renegade on the track. That's right, I'm back. I ain't here just to rap, but I'll be dropping all the straight facts. I touch down on the ball, my hits way over the wall. Pre-regular season, all the sports you find in the fall. Take it coast to coast, then maybe a little roast. Got some beef between some athletes, and I'ma propose a toast to the NBA that's coming up. Preview, I'ma tell what's up. So fast-paced and unstoppable, but who compares to the champs, the Golden Dubs? What's up, guys? This is Ball Don't Lie. This is the show. This is my first show. I'm ready to get going. I've always wanted to just do sports talk. You know, have a good time talking about sports. If you know me, that's all my life is, basically, sport. So yeah, Renegade Ryan back at it. If you paid attention to the lyrics, you heard some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. Kind of like to do that in my intro, just kind of throw rap out there. I like to rap too, just for fun. I'm going to talk some football, a little NFL and college football. It should be a really exciting season, so I'm going to talk some basketball with you. Definitely excited about this. Might throw in a little NHL. Not a lot of NHL fans that I know of, but I'd love to talk a little bit of NHL if I got some time. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. But let's start with the NFL. One of the big, I guess it's not a huge headline right now, but Chris Peterson got traded from the Saints to the Cardinals. The Saints just barely had him this year for these 5 weeks. Looked like it didn't work out. They moved on. They traded him for an undisclosed draft pick. So they didn't get much for him. The Cardinals got another back. David Johnson, who was their main back, was supposed to be kind of the man, especially fantasy points wise. He was supposed to be super good. Got hurt. So that was rough. The Cardinals are last in the NFL in rushing this year. They're last. So this Peterson trade was to kind of look and see if they can kind of improve that. Which, who knows, maybe the difference for them between winning and losing. I mean, right now they're not doing too bad. So I think this is kind of going to be an effort to stay within that playoff race. Right now the Cardinals are 2-3. They're only a game back in their division. But their plus minus is negative 44. Second to last in the NFC, which is rough. Speaking of plus minus, the top team in the league right now probably will blow your mind. It's the Jaguars. Jacksonville Jaguars are number 1, sitting at 3-2, leading their division. Chiefs are number 2 at plus 53. They're 5-0. They're the best team in the league, guys. I'm sorry for Jaguar fans, but Jaguars are doing a lot better than people thought. I mean, they were supposed to be a little better, but not leading the division better. It does help, though, for them that Mariota for the Titans was out, and J.J. Watt is hurt now for the Texans. So that does help the Jaguars because Andrew Luck's hurt for the Colts, Mariota's hurt for the Titans, Watt's hurt for the Texans. That's like each team's best player. And the Jaguars are sitting here healthy with Leonard Fournette looking good. The Patriots are 3rd in their division while they're tied for 1st at 3-2. They'll be fine. Their defense is struggling, but I think they'll be okay. Bills and Jets will fall off. New York is having a weird season with football. The Jets were supposed to be terrible, supposed to be tanking to get Sam Darnold in the draft, yet the Jets are 3-2. They've won 3 straight. The Giants, who were supposed to compete for possibly going to the Super Bowl, are now 0-5. They're stupid for playing OBJ. He was supposed to be, they were saying it was like a 6 to 8 week injury, but he played week 2 and week 3. He's been playing the last few weeks anyway. Hasn't been as productive, obviously, because of his injury. And the Giants just lost to the Chargers. Their last 3 losses were in close games, like last possession games. But it's just their O-line and running game. And for those who talk crap about Eli Manning, I'm a little biased, I know. But Eli's not as bad as people think. Eli's a good quarterback. Try being the quarterback of a team with a terrible offensive line and no running game for years. Try doing that and being the most effective quarterback in the NFL. He's 7th all-time in passing yards. That's still pretty impressive with 2 Super Bowl rings. Eli's pretty good, I would say. He just has rough years because he's getting sacked a bunch. And he has to throw the ball. He has to force it because otherwise he's going to be laying on the ground all game. Might as well grab a sleeping bag and just sleep on the ground all game because that's what he basically does with his O-line. But the Giants are definitely out of contention. OBJ's out for the year. Brandon Marshall's out for the year. It's looking like Sterling Shepard's the man for them. He's a good young wide receiver, but not to lead them. Giants are done. They're done. Broncos defense looking phenomenal. Big Ben struggling, but I think the Steelers will be fine. Steelers should win their division. Browns still defeated. Not won a game this year. Raiders aren't doing as good. I thought the Raiders would win the division. They're struggling this year. Marshawn Lynch hasn't had quite the impact. I mean, it's tough to come back, you know, from that. But I mean, it's still early. They still got a chance. It's gonna be tough for them with this 2-3 start. But the wild card's open because 2-3 right now is pretty close to the wild card. So I think they'll be fine. They'll make the playoffs, but thought they'd win the division. In the NFC, the Eagles are doing great. They're 4-1. Cowboys are struggling, but I think they'll be fine. I think the Cowboys will turn around and make the playoffs. Ezekiel Elliott, though, wow, has he been bad this year. He's been a bust. It's going to be rough for Dak Prescott. Pretty soon, Dak Prescott's going to feel Eli's pain when it comes to the running game. Not so much the O-line, because Dallas has got a decent O-line. When it comes to not having a running game, he's going to feel his pain. Packers are looking good. The Eagles are number 1 in plus-minus. You know who's number 2? The Rams. The Rams and Jaguars are both towards the top of their conference in plus-minus. The Rams are looking good, though. Goff and Gurley are good young pieces that they've got. The Rams should be good in the future. They're good right now. They could possibly make the playoffs. They're number 2 in the NFC in plus-minus, which is a great indicator. Lions are doing fine. Panthers are good in the sense they're winning. I'm not sold on the Panthers yet. I'm not sold on them. Don't like Cam Newton with what he's been talking about. Cam's been really frustrating. Good player, but doesn't seem like that great of a person right now. Just kind of his attitude. The Falcons are overrated in my opinion. I still think the Buccaneers have a shot at this division. And the Saints do too, I think. I think the Saints aren't as bad as people think. Their defense, isn't very good. Don't ever count out Drew Brees. And then the Seahawks look like their offense is starting to get rolling. So that's good. And obviously, 49ers are still terrible. Other than that, I mean, it's interesting this year. Definitely interesting. The Jets being at 3-2 is crazy. But the Chiefs are the best team. I got to hand it to them. The Chiefs are the top team right now. They're looking very, very impressive. They are playing some good football, guys. Watch out for the Chiefs. In college football, it's looking good. Good season, but only thing I'm kind of disappointed about is there's only 2 good teams, or not 2 good teams. There's obviously more than that. But I see 2 teams that are just above the rest. It's Alabama and it's Clemson. Clemson's phenomenal. Their defense is so good. Wow. I mean, I've watched almost every single one of Clemson's games this year on TV. When they played Virginia Tech, that was so impressive. Their defense is phenomenal. I mean, I haven't seen a defense like that in a while. Alabama's obviously got a great defense, but that's because they're big. And the talent of Clemson's defense. Their defensive coordinator is so good. I love watching him on the sidelines. He's very into the game, pretty animated. He's very intense. I love it. I like Dabo Swinney. I think he's a good coach. Clemson is a good team. I think they really can beat Alabama. Clemson, undefeated. They've got a game coming up on the 4th of November, they've got a game against NC State. That should be a really good game. Last season was great. NC State almost had the win, but Clemson pulled it out. This season, though, at NC State, should be a good one. I don't think NC State will upset them. Alabama doesn't have much competition until they play Auburn the last regular season game of the year. Auburn's number 10 at Auburn. I haven't seen enough from Auburn's offense to really compete with Alabama, who just beat Texas A&M in a pretty decent game. Before that, they beat Ole Miss 66-3. Alabama's dang good, still the number 1 team. Alabama's probably going to face Georgia in the SEC Championship, while Clemson will probably face Miami. I think both teams go into the college playoff undefeated. I like Penn State, Saquon Barkley. I think he is leading that Heisman race. Stanford's running back's good, though. And Stanford is the most underrated team in the country, I think, right now. They played well against Utah, who's a good team. Beat them. Their running back sealed the deal with a nice run. He was due for it, too. Stanford's a good team. I think Stanford could win out regular season-wise. It'll be tough, but I think they can. They play Washington State, who's number 8 in the country. Washington State is a good team. Good team. But they play Stanford. I think Stanford wins that, and I think Washington State goes into the Apple Cup against Washington at Washington. I think they'll go in 11 or 10-1. And Washington, I think, will go in undefeated. I think Washington will win. Staying in the Pac-12, I think Washington will play USC in the Pac-12 championship. I think USC will win out. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think those two will meet in the Pac-12 championship. I think Washington will win. Washington's still good. Even after losing a bunch of their pieces, Washington looks really good. I think Washington's still going to make the college football playoff, probably at number 4, Alabama at number 1. They'll probably play each other again, and Alabama will crush them once again. But UW's still relevant, still a good team. Georgia's up there too. Personally, I haven't seen enough of Georgia, enough from them. They beat Tennessee, decent team, but meh. They beat Notre Dame, meh. They beat Mississippi State, who looked good against LSU, but now LSU's not looking as good. So, meh. I don't know. I think Georgia will play in that SEC title against Alabama. Should be a good one, but I think Alabama still wins that. Georgia could compete for that playoff spot, as can Penn State and Washington. TCU's number 6 right now, but I think once they get into the tougher part of their schedule, I don't think they'll do quite as well. I don't think they'll really compete later down the year for that college football playoff spot. I mean, who else we got? I don't know. Ohio State could kind of come up and get back into it, but Ohio State lost to Oklahoma, who just lost to Iowa State. That hurts Ohio State. Because Ohio State was, I think Ohio State's still going to win out. I think they'll be great. But, I mean, you look at the other Big Ten schools, Wisconsin's good, but they haven't really played much competition. I don't think Wisconsin will compete for the college football playoff spot. You look at other Big Ten schools, Michigan, they're not that great. Michigan State's okay, but really it's Ohio State and Wisconsin, and Ohio State lost to a team who lost to Iowa State. I think it's going to be tough for Ohio State to get back up there. I don't think Auburn's going to get up there. I think Miami will keep winning a lot in the ACC, which will be great, but I don't think that they're a good enough team to play in that football playoff. USC lost one game to a good Washington State team. I think USC wins out regular season-wise and plays Washington in the college football playoff, and that'll be a great game. That could... If USC wins out and then beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship, USC could find themselves back in that discussion and in the college football playoff. Other than that, I don't see much other competition. There's some decent teams there, like Oklahoma State's okay, Virginia Tech's okay, Notre Dame's okay, Michigan's okay, South Florida and San Diego State are undefeated. They're going to be competing for that, what do they call it? Like, it's not part of the major conferences, one of the other group of 5 spots. They're going to be looking for that. San Diego State has a big game this week against Boise State. Boise State, I think, will give them a good game, but San Diego State should win that. Their running back's also really good. They always seem to have a great running back. NC State's good, but not great. Stanford, though, I'm telling you, watch out for Stanford. They could really, really shake things up in not only the Pac-12, but the country. Their losses are to number 6 USC. USC was number 6 at the time, so a great team. They lost to a great team. They lost to San Diego State, who is a good team, but they're starting to pick up momentum. They beat Arizona State. They beat Utah. They have Oregon. I think they'll be Oregon State. They do have to play Washington State and Washington back-to-back. I'm picking that they'll beat Washington State, but they'll lose to Washington. Then they play Cal. Then they play Notre Dame. I think they win all but one of those games, and I think that one they lose is Washington. I just wouldn't count Stanford out because they've only got one conference loss right now. If they upset Washington State and Washington, Stanford could make the Pac-12 championship. They could. So, that's pretty much it for college football. Jumping just real quick into some hockey. Las Vegas just had a really tragic event. They've now got a sports team that they can really root for that's in Vegas. That's the Las Vegas Knights, a new expansion team. I think it'd be really cool for the city if the Knights did really well in their first year. They're 2-0 right now. Starting off 2-0. They're undefeated. They should just quit the season right now and say, hey, we're undefeated right now. We're undefeated. They haven't lost. But that should be interesting to see how they kind of work out. But NHL season's going all right. Toronto is looking good. Caps are looking all right. The Blues are looking good. Chicago always looks good. Very early in the season, though, so not too much to really pin right now. Sliding into the MLB real quick for a few minutes because it is postseason. Right now, headlines are saying the future is uncertain for Red Sox manager Farrell. Should be interesting. Farrell, I think, is a decent manager. They won a title with him. But just the last couple of years, they've been so disappointing in the postseason. Last season and this year, they won the division. Last year, they went into the playoffs. Actually, one of the favorites. But they were terrible. Got swept. Now this year, they lost 3-1. And what's funny about the Red Sox, they go into the season and everyone's like, oh, they're pitching. Their pitching's phenomenal. Chris Sale, David Price, and what's his name? The dude that won Cy Young last year. I mean, the Red Sox are supposed to have great pitching, and what really hurt them was their pitching in the postseason. It was their pitching that beat them in the postseason. Houston just teed off on them. I mean, it was It was crazy. I mean, Houston looks really good right now. And what's interesting is Cleveland was up 2-0, but the Yankees have won those last two and sending it to a game 5. Don't count out the Yankees. I think what makes the Yankees interesting in the postseason and as a threat to go to the World Series is the Yankees' offense, their attack, and their potential to score 8 runs on any given night is dangerous. It's dangerous. I mean, tomorrow night when they play Game 5, the Yankees, if they go off again, just like they did the last few games, Yankees could find themselves in the ALCS against Houston, where I think they could beat Houston. I really do. I'm expecting the Indians to win, play the Astros. I'm expecting the Indians to win and get back to the World Series for a second straight year. Try and get some redemption. In the NL, the Dodgers just swept the Diamondbacks. No surprise there. The Dodgers are fine. People quit worrying about the Dodgers. I know they had a kind of a rough stretch, but the Dodgers are fine. They're great. Cubs and Nats, they play tonight in Chicago. Game 4. Cubs looking to finish it off. I think the Cubs are going to finish them tonight. Cubs finished pretty hot. They're a good team. It should be Cubs-Dodgers in the NLCS. I think the Cubs I think it could be a World Series rematch. Chicago and Cleveland. It'd be kind of fun because, Cleveland had a 3-1 lead last year and Chicago came back and won it 4-3. I'm not sure I'm ready to pick them over the Dodgers, though. I still think the Dodgers are great. They've got a great pitching rotation. They need offense to continue to back up their pitching, but I still see them getting to the World Series against Cleveland, two best teams in the world this year. It's kind of it for MLB. Tune into the game, Washington and Chicago tonight. Should be good. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm actually getting back into baseball. I do really like baseball again. Should be fun to watch. Postseason's always fun. I guess that's kind of when I start watching baseball is in the postseason. But it should be a good one. Now we get to the real deal. That's the NBA. Guys, the NBA starts a week from today. Y'all pumped? Because I'm so pumped. I'm super excited. The offseason was ridiculous, wasn't it? What a crazy offseason. I mean, the Thunder pull a rabbit out of the hat. Get Paul George. Phenomenal. Get Paul George for Oladipo and Sabonis. Not bad. Great, actually. Yeah, Thunder improved their standing. They should be, 4th with that. Okay, well then, out of nowhere, they grab Carmelo. Now they've got Westbrook, Carmelo, and George. I'm going to say I think it's going to take a little while for them to mesh together offensively. People say Westbrook doesn't try that hard on defense. Anthony's not a good defender. But look who else they have on the court. They don't need to play defense. They have Paul George, elite defender. They have Steven Adams, elite post defender. Andre Roberson, elite defender. They've got enough guys to play defense. I think they're going to be fine defensively. It's the offense, which ironically I think is going to be the hard part for them, is figuring out their offense. Because you've got 3 dudes who are used to being the number 1 option from last year. I think Carmelo's going to be better, more efficient because he's off the ball. I think he's going to be okay being off the ball a little bit more because he can kind of spot up shoot. Paul George and Russell Westbrook, that's the one I'm kind of looking at. Paul George doesn't seem like a selfish guy, but Westbrook so far has looked like he's done well distributing the ball, and he's okay with passing the ball a lot because now he realizes that. But it's just going to be interesting to see how those 3 kind of mesh. And if they're able to, get enough shots to each other. And then seeing the X factor, Steven Adams, if he can put up some points, I think he's the X factor for the team. If he can put up 15 points a night, the Thunder are going to be super hard to beat. With that segue, I'm going to go into ESPN's preview that they just put out today with their power rankings. I'm not sure I agree with these power rankings. And granted, they're not obviously the only indicator of who's the top teams and whatever. I agree with their number 1 slot with the Warriors, of course. The rest of their rankings and ratings and these power rankings are all based on their ability to beat the Warriors, which I guess is a fair metric because everyone's chasing the Warriors. But really, if you're looking at best teams in the league, I don't agree with this. Number 1 Warriors, 2 Rockets, 3 Cavs, then Spurs, Clippers, Bucks, Nuggets, then the Thunder. I'm confused. When I put up the other day my predicted standings, I did have the Rockets number 2 in the West, but I still think the Cavs are better. Look at the Cavs this year. Derrick Rose, I think, is going to have a better year. They're going to play really fast-paced basketball because they've got Thompson coming off the bench. News came out that they're going to start Dwayne Wade over J.R. Smith. I think that's smart. I think Smith's a good X factor off the bench where he can come off the bench and just stroke threes and really give a spark to the team. I know this is going to be the unpopular opinion, but I think the Cavs need to stick with D Rose as the starter for the whole year, even when Isaiah comes back, but give Isaiah starter minutes. I think Isaiah needs to come off the bench because he can't defend. Bring him off the bench and let him score 18 points a game. Let him score 20 points a game off the bench. That's going to be a tough Cavs team to beat. In fact, I think that team could beat the Warriors. I'm not saying they would, but I think they could. You've got Jeff Green, athleticism off the bench. J.R. Smith, obviously. You've got Tristan Thompson, good post man off the bench. Kyle Korver, stroke threes off the bench. This Cavs team, guys, is going to be really good. Their starting lineup projected, until Thomas comes back, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Jay Crowder, Kevin Love. Two really good defenders right there. Two really good defenders. LeBron and Crowder. Okay, that's fine. You got two good defenders. Love, good rebounder, good shooter. Dwayne Wade, just all-around good basketball player, veteran. Derrick Rose, I think, is going to be better than a lot of people expect. Derrick Rose was, I think, the bargain of the offseason. He was the bargain of the offseason. Derrick Rose is an 18-point-a-game guy, and I think playing with LeBron's going to help him be more efficient. I like Derrick Rose this year. I think he's going to be good. I do think, though, the Rockets are the biggest threat to the Warriors in the West for this reason. One of the biggest ways to beat the Warriors is to defend the three, slow down the game, but can you really do that against them? Can you realistically slow them down pace-wise? Heck no. Can you really stop Curry, Thompson, and Durant, even Draymond Green at times, from shooting a three? You can't guard the three-point line with four guys. No way. One of those guys is going to get a shot off and they're going to be hot. You can't stop that. I think the way to beat the Warriors is at their own game, and it's a risk. It's a risk because it's live by the three, die by the three. Who does that? The Houston Rockets. I think they're the biggest threat in the West of the Warriors because they stroke threes. I've watched a couple of the preseason games. I know it's preseason and it doesn't mean much, but just looking at their roster, like Chris Paul's good. Love him being a floor general with Harden, who can play off the ball more now. That's a good backcourt. That's tough to beat, just that backcourt right there. But then you add Capella, who's getting better and better each year. Capella, in my opinion, is like Steven Adams. They're kind of the same player. They play great defense, protect the rim. Not a ton offensively, but can, surprise you some nights and get 20 points if they really need to. Then you got Ryan Anderson, strokes threes. I know he's a contract liability, but and a defensive liability, but as a shooter, it's hard to beat him. Then you've got, Mbah Moute plays defense. Eric Gordon off the bench. PJ Tucker, great defender. He's a good player. They got him. They got Nene coming off the bench. I really like Houston. I know they're trigger happy and they shoot a lot of threes. That's the way you're going to beat the Warriors. You got to get lucky 4 out of 7 games and just have a good night shooting. I think the Rockets are the team that can do that in the West. They're just the most capable of doing it. Third in the West, according to this power rankings, is the Spurs. I'm okay with that. I had the Thunder at 3 and the Spurs at 4. I'm okay with the Spurs at 3 because of Greg Popovich, obviously. Aldridge needs to do better. Just saying it. Aldridge needs to play better. I thought he was terrible last year. I do not like Aldridge in the Spurs system because the Spurs are about moving the ball, and Aldridge is about, hey, I'm going to post up at the high post, give me the rock, I'm going to stop the ball, I'm going to get buckets, but I'm going to slow it down, and I'm going to do a turnaround fadeaway. That's not how Pop does it. I just don't think it works out. That's why I put them below the Thunder, because I think in a series, the Thunder would beat the Spurs, and so I think the Thunder are better, which brings me to number 4 in the West, or 3. Kind of depends on where you put them. They're interchangeable. It's OKC. Westbrook, George, Anthony, Adams, Roberson. I love Roberson. Love him. People do not like Roberson because he airballs free throws and can't shoot a 3. I don't give a crap. That dude is such a good defender. He's a good slasher. Yes, he's a shooting liability, but look who he's got on his team now. He don't have to shoot the ball. Roberson could average 2 points a night, and I would still love him because he's a great defender, and I just love the dirty work that he does. Then you look at their bench. Their bench is what concerns me. Felton's okay. He's decent. I like Jeremy Grant. Not a shooter, though. Then where do you go? Patrick Patterson, great player for them. He's a bargain. Him coming off the bench, I think, will be wonderful as well. My problem, though, is who else? They don't have anyone else, really. Their bench is going to be tough. They're going to have to run George with the bench a lot. They're going to have to run Anthony with the bench a lot. Personally, I know it's also not popular, and I like Anthony on the Thunder, but I think the Thunder would be better off if they started Patterson and brought Anthony off the bench. It's obviously not going to happen, but I think they'd be more effective that way because Anthony could come off the bench, be the ball-dominant guy, score the rock. You could give Westbrook and George rest. Patterson can shoot the 3, stretch the floor just like Anthony can from the starting lineup, and he's a better defender. That's what I would do if I was OKC. If I was Billy Donovan, probably not going to happen, though. I just have a problem with the Clippers at 5 overall. I think in the West, the Clippers still could be 5. I like Beverly as, I don't like Beverly, but I like Beverly as, he's a good basketball player for them to be on their team. Teodosic, that dude, I feel like is Steve Nash reincarnated. Like, watching him pass the ball and handle the rock, he's great for the Clippers. He can still oop to DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin. Clippers are going to be fine, guys. I really do. I think they're going to be just fine. I think they're going to still be 5th or 6th in the West, competing in the playoffs. Don't know how far they'll get. Probably not past the first round, but still, they'll still compete. They're not as bad as people thought they are. They got a lot for Chris Paul. The Bucks at 6, though. I'm just like, that JR face. He's like, what? Yeah, that's me with the Bucks. The Bucks are not the second best team in the East, in my opinion. They're not. Antetokounmpo cannot hit a jump shot. If he could shoot, I'd say, okay, 3. But I have the Bucks at 5. I have Cleveland, then Washington, Boston, Toronto. Toronto's still good. They're just not going to go anywhere. They're just stagnant right now. Boston, I think, got worse because they gave up too much for Kyrie and Hayward. And then the Wizards, I think, are on the up and up still. Scott Brooks is coaching them well. I love John Wall and Bradley Beal. Otto Porter's good. Morris is good. I think the Wizards, as long as they can get more production from their bench, the Wizards are going to be the number 2 seed in the playoffs. But the Bucks at 2, 6th in the league? No way. They're not better than OKC. They are not better than Boston. They're not better than Toronto. Not better than Washington. Antetokounmpo's good. Brogdon's decent. Snell's decent. Middleton is decent. But that's all they have. It's just decent. Jabari Parker needs to stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to. So I don't see the Bucks at 6th. Going to the Nuggets. The Nuggets are also ranked above the Thunder. The Nuggets are good. Like, they're young, they're good. A lot of people are comparing them to the Warriors of a few years ago, where the Warriors were just starting to kind of get really good and young. They've got a shooter in Gary Harris. They've got, what's his name? Gosh. Jokic. Why did I forget his name? Jokic. Great. One of the best big men in the league, in my opinion. They've got Paul Millsap, who's going to be their good scorer. They got Wilson Chandler, who I still like. As long as he can stay healthy, Wilson Chandler's the X factor on that team because he's a veteran and he's good. Their point guard spot's a little weak, though. Like Jamal Murray, Jameer Nelson, Emmanuel Mudiay. I'm not a fan of any of those guys. I just don't think they're really enough. That's why I wouldn't put Denver at 7th in the league. I just don't think their point guard spot is strong enough. You got to have a great point guard in this league. You got to. I mean, it's a very guard-driven league. Look at a lot of the top players. Kyrie, John Wall, Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul. James Harden is a point guard last year. I mean, it's very driven by the point guard, and that's great. And they just don't have much of a point guard. Sorry. Timberwolves should be good. I don't think they'll be as great as people are expecting. They should be decent, though, with Karl Anthony Towns. Andrew Wiggins, terrible at defense, but he can score. Jimmy Butler should make up for that lack of defense because he's a good defender. Jeff Teague's good. Timberwolves should be pretty decent. They've got Taj Gibson, who I love as their 4-man. I would start him over Jang. I think Jang would bring good energy off the bench. And then I'm just looking at Jamal Crawford off the bench, but I don't see a lot of depth with Minnesota. Not enough depth to put him any higher. And then rounding out the top 10 that ESPN has is the Miami Heat. Again, I wouldn't put them at high. I would move them a little lower. Basically, they have the Heat as the 3rd best team in the East. I mean, this is, again, it's relative to the Warriors, so I kind of understand it. But they're not the 3rd best team in the East. I would put them 6th, maybe. About 6th. 6th at the most. At the highest, I'd put them 6th. I like Whiteside. Love Dragic. I think they've got a good team, with Waiters. And they just picked up Olynyk, who's a decent bench player. I just don't see him 3rd. I'm really excited for this NBA season, guys. I think it's going to be great. Tune in next week, especially to watch basketball. Tune into my show as well. I'm going to be putting it out. I'm going to try and put it out a little bit earlier next Tuesday because the season does start that night, so then you can kind of get my preview and stuff. Next week, it's just going to be all NBA. I'm going to kind of preview the night. It's probably going to be a little bit shorter because I'm just going to preview the games and kind of talk about any other changes that happen within the next week in terms of the NBA and rosters and projected starting lineups and things like that. So, thanks for watching. Ball don't lie. I am the ball. I don't lie. You heard it here. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.